All right, welcome Daniel Nation to the Daniel Report. It's good to have you back on our monthly podcast here. And my guest this month is David Covey, who's going to be talking about his recent election to House District 21 and his race that he just ran in Southeast Texas. Dave and I actually met back last November when I went down to Beaumont to scout out that election for House District 21, and I had never met David or his family before, and was thoroughly impressed. Let me say, David just has a wonderful family. Met his mom and dad and his sisters, his wife and his kids, and just a godly man, a wonderful man. A man of true character and true grit. To be able to step up and run against a guy like Dade Phelan for, the current Speaker of the Texas House. David, a Speaker of the Texas House hasn't lost an election in Texas in well over 50 years. And let's start off tonight talking about what made you decide to challenge, I guess you would say, the most powerful Republican in Texas underneath the governor and lieutenant governor. The Speaker of the House is the third most powerful position in the state of Texas. What made you decide to step up and challenge this guy?
Well, someone asked me, was it grit or stupidity? And so, you know, he had strayed so far from what it meant to be a conservative that, and he had been unchallenged for the most part in all his races. So since he first won 10 years ago, no one's even run against him. And so what I had been telling all of my friends and neighbors that would listen is, look, to save our country and our state, we all have to do a little bit more. And me and my wife were praying about it and convicted that includes us. We have to do a little bit more as well. And so that meant just giving the people a choice. We need to run, put the facts out there, and let the voters decide. And so that's what we did. And what an amazing ride! Never thought it would end up being this big. Never thought it would become the most expensive race in history, and certainly has been a wild ride. I got to meet the former President Trump through all this, and just a lot of great patriots around this district and around the state.
Yeah, I mean, you had an awesome race. I mean, it wasn't just locally focused or even statewide. I mean, this was a national election. All the eyes of really other states were on Texas watching your race, and a lot of people were invested in this, and it's really cool. So tell us exactly, what did you campaign on? What was your main focus, and what was your connecting point with the voters?
Yeah, the big thing was we have to close the border and we have to protect our communities. I want my boys to grow up in a safe community. I want them to have the opportunities I've had. But if we don't have a country that has law and order, then we don't have a place where our kids can prosper. And so, my opponent kept saying, "Oh, well, I've spent this much money and I've sent this much money to the border and all this." But ultimately, when the crossings and the encounters were at an all-time high under his watch, you're not doing enough. And at the same time, law enforcement was saying, we know how to close the border. They just won't give us the authority to do it. And so I said, okay, enough talk. If you're gonna not take action, that's not good enough. We have to do something. So that and then we were running, just we want to govern like conservatives and stop empowering Democrats who want to literally destroy our country and our way of life and rebuild it into a social communist type of way of life. We've got to stop empowering them, and that means making them committee chairs. That means not punishing them when they break quorum and leave town so that we can't get business done. Let's stop pretending like we're best friends with the people who want to put a knife in our back. And let's act like conservatives. Let's do what's right for Texas and not what's political expedient.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you. I'm 100% on board with what you're saying there. So let's talk about your election results here. The numbers show that you lost by 366 votes, even though you were ahead in the polls before election day. Do you believe these election numbers are accurate, or do you feel like there was some fraud or cheating going on, or even some, miscalculations there with the final results?
Yeah. Well, interesting enough that my opponent has blocked multiple election integrity bills. Wonder why. When we looked back at the results, we found a lot of what we call abnormalities, things that, people are voting from a commercial address or people that have moved out of state still voting. So we did see these. The problem with anything like this is that you have to have so much money to go fight this in court. Phelan killed a bill that allowed the attorney general to come in and prosecute, election and fraud. And so it's really hard for a person like me to use our funds to go after these people in court because it's so expensive. It prohibits us from being able to fight on in this battle. Um, I think that if the big thing that we take away from this is this race is maybe the model case for why we have to close the primaries. Because when Republicans were voting and Democrats were voting in their primary back in March, they went to vote for President Biden and their people. We won. In fact, we were over 1,000 votes ahead. Uh, Once we got to the runoff, our current setup still allows Democrats who didn't vote in their primary to still come out and come over and vote in our runoffs. That should be wrong. They don't have anything going on, so they're able to come, cross over and influence what should be a Republican race. And if we hadn't had that, we identified 1,432 um, traditional Democrat voters who came out and voted in the runoff. They probably didn't vote for the guy who was saying no more Democrat chairs. We're guessing they voted for the guy that said, he said, I'm not going to waver from appointing Democrats. I'm going to empower Democrats. We're going to work with Democrats. We think that's who they probably voted for. And ultimately, that 366, we would have won in a landslide if you took out the Democrat voters.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You have uncovered the exact reason why we have to close our primaries in Texas. And I'm very thankful that at the state convention that we passed that in our rules that we will be closing the primary. And I know that Chairman Abraham George is going to fight like no other to try to close the primaries so that this never happens again. Now, I want to talk about Orange County, which was your stronghold county. Your House district covered Jasper County, Jefferson County, and Orange County. In Orange County, which was really your bastion of support, in the primary, you won the county by a margin of 15.19%. But in the runoff, you won it by 7.7%. So a 50% reduction of support in the runoff. And when you look at Dade Phelan's numbers, just from the math, 84% of his supporters supposedly came back for him in Orange County in the runoff, even though, according to Texas Politics Project at UT Austin, he only had a 7% approval rating of those who strongly approved of his job performance. Do you really believe that 84% of Dade Phelan supporters came back for him in Orange County?
No, I really don't. His people were not excited to vote for him. There was no, in fact, he had to pay people to come out to the polls. We had over 50 people locally that were standing at the polls. They're holding signs. We're not paying any of these people. They're volunteers that live here. They love this state. They love this district. And he couldn't get a handful of people to come and even volunteer for him. So I have trouble believing that he was able to convince that all of his supporters to come out. In the middle, we had a huge thunderstorm, and it suppressed the overall voter turnout on election day. I think that hurt us, but it's just interesting that the numbers say that all of his people came out. They didn't have excitement the entire time. They got scared in the runoff because we were ahead going into it from the primary, but ultimately, they had several things that happened that I can tell you about. One is specifically in Jefferson County, which was Phelan's stronghold. They put the voting locations in the heavy Democrat Phelan concentrated areas. And so they had people out in the China area that are having to drive 30 miles to vote Whereas without a location, they should have had a location there. They normally would, but surprise, surprise, the county clerk conducting the election is a Phelan supporter. So they decide not to put it in the areas of Jefferson County where my rural voters are, and they would go vote. And they put it in all these Democrat areas. And the same thing actually happened in Jasper County, and the Jasper County people found out about it, called their election administrator, and got new locations added. But they were that's basically fraud, interference with elections to not put a location in the precincts that are voting, and put all the voting boxes where their people find it convenient, but where our people have to drive, and it makes it very inconvenient, and you're trying to discourage turnout from the rural areas.
Yeah, and I heard reports that some of your supporters that voted for you in the primary, when they went to the polls in the runoff, were told they were not allowed to vote in the runoff. Have you chased any of those cases down?
Yeah, where we had in fact we've had hundreds of people, and this you always have a couple people that go in and say, well, we wanted to vote but we got turned down, and usually it's a case of mistaken locations. Here we had engineers, doctors, nurses, intelligent people who say, no, we went in and voted for you in the primary. So we looked up their addresses, and we're getting to the bottom of it. I think right now you can actually pull people's ballots, depending on a couple different scenarios, but you can pull their ballots. So if we're able to prove that they voted in the primary, but were not allowed to vote in the runoff, it's a very open and shut case of voter fraud. And I believe these will turn out to be that. We just need a little more time to get to the bottom of it. But it's amazing. These are intelligent people who know what they were doing, and it just doesn't smell right.
And if you can prove that blatant voter fraud, would that open up an automatic audit, or how do you go about processing or prosecuting against that?
Well, it would open up an audit. The Secretary of State would certainly come in. It would definitely get the someone fired for not handling the election correctly. As far as overturning the results, I'm skeptical that it would do a lot there. It should cause another election if it was found that it was over 366 of these events. I don't know that it would actually go to that, because the problem is anything we do, Phelan's going to challenge in court and try to tie it up for years with litigation.
Yeah, I know exactly. It's very discouraging to try to fight it. Now, we know that Alicia Davis pulled 10.5% of the vote in the primary. Were you able to tell what percentage of her voters came back to vote for you in the runoff?
Yeah, it was we. So I don't know the exact number, but we won Jasper County 70. I want 173%, somewhere in there, which was extraordinary to win a county. We won Jasper more than he won Jefferson. And so the problem was there was a somewhat lower turnout in Jasper County. If, just another 500 people had voted and we're getting 71% of that, that would have put us over the edge. But really, proportionately, Jasper did well. The main lower turnout was actually in Orange County. And I can tell you, just I'm been on vacation kind of since the runoff election. I got my little election protest here going on, not shaving, so but what so many people have come up to me and told me, man, we thought you had this, so we didn't vote for you. And so there was this a certain amount of apathy where people thought we came in higher in the primary, so we got it, and then they didn't turn out. And was it a couple hundred to? I think it was in the hundreds, and that just reinforces what all of us have been saying, which is that every vote counts. Never take it for granted. You got to get out and you got to vote, because it could come down to just a couple votes.
Yeah, and that's what scares me about November, and especially with Senator Ted Cruz and that seat being so crucial for us in Texas, and just, Republican voters being apathetic, not trusting the voting machines, not trusting the process, believing that their vote is not going to count. And so they just throw their hands up and just say, I'm going to stay at home, and, whatever happens, happens. Que sera, sera. I mean, that's how you lose your state and it becomes a Democrat state.
Absolutely. No, his is going to be close. And we all think, oh, we're Texas, we're not going to lose Senator Cruz's seat. It could come down to a couple hundred votes, and that's one or two people in every county. If they'll go vote, then that could put it across the finish line.
Absolutely. So we've got to keep pushing that message out there. So I've seen a lot of nice comments, David, out on social media about your campaign and how you really shaped the topography for the 89th legislative session. A lot of rhinos lost their seats in March and in the runoff in May. And so let's talk about the impact of your campaign and what impact you feel you made in Texas.
Well, I think that number one, we challenged the speaker, and we successfully challenged him to the point where we really gave him a scare. And we showed that what he's doing is not only not popular around the state, but empowering Democrats is not popular back home as well. And so I think we elevated the topic of empowering Democrats to be one that now the new members and the incumbents that are already in the House are already discussing not supporting a speaker who will continue that practice. And so I don't think that necessarily would be as important an issue or would be at the forefront if we hadn't run. On top of that, I do believe, he spent $15 million against me, which $1 million makes your life uncomfortable. 15 is takes it to a whole new level. And so we tied up more resources than in any House election in Texas history. So that means that, when he would have maybe given Stephanie Click another million, he had to give her, well, here's 100,000 instead. I got to spend this on my own race. And I think we won I think 7 races at least, due to tying up so much resources down here that he had to keep his resources. He wasn't able to go and defend his lieutenants, and so that, to me, we didn't win this seat. But we won other seats. We won more seats, and so we're sending reinforcements to Austin, and I am thank God for that. I think it was still a victory, even though I was disappointed not to go for sure. But I think we have some excellent people going, and we were a part of that, and all the whole team and all the volunteers from around the state that participated. We were all a part of this movement of fighting against the encroachment of these liberal policies.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you for being the guy that got out there, in the ring with Dade Phelan to force him to keep all that money in Southeast Texas and not give it across the state. Your race reminds me a lot of my race back in 2017 that I ran for city council. I wrote about it in my book, Daniel Nation, When Christians Take a Stand in Civil Government. But, I didn't win my race either in 2017, but I was able to impact the mayor's race, which took place 3 months later, and forced the candidates to address issues of density and overtaxation in Frisco, Texas, which was becoming a huge problem. And it really shaped the debate for the mayor's race and started to really address some of the big problems that nobody really wanted to talk about. And I feel like your race, even though you didn't win your race, you have shaped the debate for the 89th legislative session, for closing primaries, for selecting a more conservative speaker, for the practice of the speaker not being able to give money to his lieutenants to buy the speakership. Those are things that you challenged with your race, and I believe you were successful at it.
Well, and I got to brag, I have a signed copy of your book, and everyone needs to go get a copy of the book. So hope you'll put a link down in the comments. But it'd be fantastic for more people to run, and that's the difference, I think, between conservatives and liberals, is that conservatives, it's not all about us. I wasn't running so that David Covey could be some great state representative. We were running on a platform of conservative principles, and let's stand for the Republican, platform. Whereas the liberals run, it's all about them. It's about their power. It's about their name, and I think that gives conservatives such a boost in our ability to fight these attacks, because it really wasn't about us. It's about the movement. It's about making sure that we're doing the right thing. And so I think if more people would run, and realize that it's not so much about the winning. You can win and lose a race, and that's just an incredibly important lesson to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the shout out for the book. I did put the link down there. Thank you, man. So let's switch gears here and let's talk about what Dade Phelan is now doing. We're seeing Dade Phelan make a move here using his lapdogs, which would be Jeff Leach and Jared Patterson. Jeff Leach actually is my state representative, unfortunately, in Collin County. And Jared Patterson used to be my state representative when I lived in Denton County. Very interesting that it's my guys for my district that are Dade Phelan's, lapdogs. But they're basically the guys that are working to kick conservatives like Steve Toth, Nate Schatzline, Tony Tinderholt, and Brian Harrison out of the Republican caucus. And we know that they're doing this because they want Dade Phelan, their boy, to be speaker again. And Jared Patterson, he's a good old boy. He believes in the good old boy system. And that's something that we've been hearing about since Huffines ran for governor, and came back and told people that Austin is a good old boy system, that they want to basically just make it a big frat party. And that's really what Dade Phelan is. He's a big frat boy that basically wants to party with his boys and get drunk on the house floor and have, big parties. And guys like Jeff Leach and Jared Patterson are giving him a hand like this. They're all behind it. Do you think that Dade Phelan still has enough power to be speaker again in the 89th session, or do you think his reign is over?
So someone told me, well, you came so close, 49.3% of winning, almost winning this race. They said he's learned his lesson. And and so as I said, you want to bet? And so this week we found out that the Orange County Republican Party that censured Dade Phelan, and it went up to the state party, and so he was officially censored by the party under Rule 44. They were renting a commercial building. You wouldn't know it was Phelan's, but it turns out the building was Phelan's, and he is ejecting them as tenants of the building because of what they did. And so he sent them a letter that they had to vacate the premise, whereas he's giving apparently the Jefferson County that didn't censor them, he's giving them space for their Republican headquarters over in Jefferson County. So his retaliation is already started at the local level. And then you talk about Steve Toth and Tony and Nate, them all getting expelled. Or the vote coming on that. Look, I don't think Dade learned a thing. I don't think he learned a thing. I think he thinks he's invincible. He won this race. We threw everything we had at him, and he won by 366 votes, and 1,400 Democrats helped him. And he thinks he's gonna be bolder than ever in his liberal policies. And so I think he's going to try to be speaker. I think he's going to organize the Democrats. He's going to try to get a few, Jeff Leach's and Jerry Patterson's and have enough 12 other members join him and try to take it over and take it away from the Republican caucus. And that's a shame. That's a shame. And if he does that, if he's able to get away with that, he will destroy the ability for conservatives in the House to get legislation done in this upcoming session. And so there's a lot, and he'll also, no matter how conservative of legislation, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick passes in the Senate, he'll be able to kill it. So, everyone needs to be calling their member and saying, don't expel these guys. This is ridiculous. This is Phelan's retaliation. Don't expel them. Conservatives need to be in the House and in the Republican caucus, and then let's select the speaker from our caucus.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about this contract with Texas, which I think is a phenomenal document that the contract with Texas folks have put together. Actually, we kind of had an idea like this back in the 88 session for a contract with Texas. that North Texas conservatives put together. My good friend Pete Constopoulos actually helped me draft it. And we tried to get the Republicans to sign it in the 88 session, and they would not sign it. But now this new contract with Texas, there are at least 46 House members who have signed it, and especially the new grassroots Republicans like Teresa Richardson, Shelley Luther, Andy Hopper, and Mitch Little. They have all signed on to this contract with Texas, and it basically states, let Republicans run the Republican House legislature, and let's keep Democrats off of committee chairs. Do you think that this coalition of 46 House members will be large enough to overcome the votes of the Democrats and the 10 Rhino Republicans who are going to try to keep Dade Phelan as the speaker?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had this conservative of freshmen going in, and those combined with the experience of our true conservatives already in the House. Man, I can't wait. I think this is going to be a fantastic session as they begin to grow their influence. They have the numbers, they have the experience. They're going to get a lot done. And I really believe that. I believe they're going to fight for conservatives. They're not going to give in. They're not just going to turn coat at the first battle. These are real war-tested conservatives who have been through a whole lot. And so I think they have the influence. I think their numbers will grow. I would expect that as they get in and wield their power, that they're going to have more members join. That maybe they're a lot of the incumbents are kind of they don't want to jump from Dade too fast. I don't think but they will jump at some point, especially as his reign ends here. And so if we can keep Dade from being speaker, then those numbers are only going to go up of people signing on to say we're going to do. You always have the people who do the right thing because it's the right thing. That's where we fall. And then you got the people that do the right thing because the political winds are blowing that way. And we'll take them, but just remember who signed on to this first. I would always remember who signed on first and who gets on right before their next election.
I was shocked that Ben Bumgarner signed on to it already. I mean, he was pretty much following Phelan lockstep last session, taking money from Phelan, lots of money from Phelan. And he's already broken ranks with Dade Phelan. So you're right. It is possible for those that were in lockstep with Dade Phelan, they are going to break ranks and go with these 46 House members. And it may be enough to get either Dr. Oliverson or Shelby Slauson elected as Speaker of the House. What are your predictions on, Shelby versus Dr. Oliverson? I'm actually working on getting them on for an interview as well. But, I mean, I know Dr. Oliverson because I wrote about him in my book and what he did for SB 14. And in my opinion, he was the hero of the 88th legislature. I mean, he was the man. Shelby, I don't know very well. I've never met Shelby before, and I don't know much about her. But what are your thoughts on Dr. Oliverson and Shelby putting their name in the hat?
I appreciate both of them doing that. I think anyone to run against Dade Phelan for speaker there has some something to look at. I do appreciate Tom Oliverson. He got in earlier. He has been a conservative for a long time, and I just know him better. I don't really know. I'm the same way. I don't really know Representative Slauson. She put out a fantastic statement about not letting those who are setting the house on fire run it, and it was pretty dramatic and well stated. So I'll be curious. I'll be following and watching to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Jeff Leach and Matt Shaheen, both Collin County representatives, went out on a news interview last week, and they basically said this election was all about Greg Abbott and his picks for the Texas legislature. And they literally Matt Shaheen called Ken Paxton irrelevant. I'm just kind of scratching my head here when he makes that comment because, I mean, I know Ken Paxton endorsed your race along with Donald Trump and Dan Patrick. And I know that, some of Ken Paxton's picks, they won. Some of Greg Abbott's picks won. Not all of their picks won, but some won in both instances. But what do you think about this comment from Matt Shaheen that Ken Paxton is now irrelevant in Texas and Greg Abbott has all the power?
No, I think Matt Shaheen is irrelevant in Texas, but Ken, he actually won a majority of his endorsements. He's still one of the most popular, even popular statewide elected officials that we have. And some people think he's the ag commissioner, and others know he's the attorney general, but they know the name and they know they like Ken Paxton, and so when he endorses, it matters. And especially when he's winning, Matt Shaheen didn't win any endorsed races. So Matt Shaheen just needs to hang it up and try something else. But Ken Paxton's still relevant. I think he's going to go on. He's still fighting for Texans, and conservatives know it.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you like to see come out of the 89th legislative session besides closed primaries and a new speaker? What else would you love to see come out of the next session?
Election integrity. We need to get real about this. We need to get rid of the 2 weeks of early voting. Let's go to a national holiday, and let's let's put election day. One day you go in, you vote, have a paper trail, and then let's put serious penalties for voter fraud, and even more serious penalties for people administering elections that have fraud. And so if we do that, boy, I'll be a happy camper. One pet peeve is anyone that wants to pick up a bill to shorten the runoff. Okay, 12 weeks runoffs is ridiculous. That besides the stress and not sleeping for 12 weeks, it favors the incumbent because long runoffs allow the guy with the most money to come out on top because they can keep spending at a pace that the challenger can't afford. And so if you shorten that, make it 5 weeks. It makes it way more competitive. It's not protecting the incumbent like a 12-week is, and it helps us all have a little sanity. We were getting in my race, people were getting 5, 6, 7 mailers a day. They're getting 5, 6, 7 texts a day. They were hearing 5, 6 commercials on TV, radio. I mean, it was just the insanity was for 12 weeks was unreal. And if we could shorten that, we would reduce the money that's spent in these campaigns, and we would make it more even, where the incumbents just can't buy the seat.
Yeah, and I mean, voter fatigue is a real thing, and I know your
Yes.
voters were getting hit by so many commercials and mailers and messaging and billboards and radio ads and everything. And so I agree with you, and I really haven't heard that suggestion before about shortening the runoff period, but I think you're absolutely right. A shorter runoff would be a lot more fair election for everybody.
It would. It would. That, and then I hope someone comes in and looks at campaign finance. There's so much wrong with the campaign finance, and how the speaker can give money to his allies, and how the PACs spend money. A lot of that just needs to be cleaned up, reformed, and give more transparency. Not controlled by the government, but let's make sure that we're not letting government officials use their money to influence who gets in office.
Yeah, I totally agreed. Let's talk about another issue that's going to come up in the legislature, and that's school choice. We know that it didn't pass in the 88th session, it didn't pass in the special session, but it's coming back in the 89th regular session. And we know that Greg Abbott wants vouchers. I'm from the homeschool community. You were homeschooled. A lot of homeschool families are up in arms about these vouchers. They want no government strings attached. I know you were at the state convention, and your family was. I proposed a change to our platform, which got passed, by the way. We changed our platform to take vouchers out of the platform for education and to put in an exemption for property taxes so that the money stays in your pocket and you just don't pay the school district. And so then you use that money to educate your child how you see fit. And because the money doesn't exchange hands and go through the government system and come back to you in the form of a voucher, there are many in this camp who believe that cuts the government strings. But what are your thoughts on school choice? Do you think Greg Abbott's going to get it passed? What form do you think it will take? And just overall opinion on it?
Yep. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. The giving money to anyone always comes with strings. And so to get those strings cut, that exemption is just a great way to do that, without having to put more strings on what curriculum, what history you teach, what science you teach. that kind of thing. I think that the governor campaigned hard on the vouchers. He supported people who were going to pass something that he would support, and so I do think they passed some form of vouchers. I think it'll be limited in scope. It'll be opt-in. It'll be voluntary, and it'll only apply to so many. It's not going to be, they're not going to roll out a statewide program yet. It'll be for certain people who qualify. So the big kicker is going to be, what are the qualifications to get in? Do we set that up in a fair way, or do we make that you discriminate against certain beliefs and upbringings to get in that? I'm very leery about vouchers, just in general. I like school choice. I like empowering parents, but we have to do it the right way. So I think they'll get something done. I ultimately am not convinced that conservatives are going to necessarily like what we see, um, just because Phelan is going to be in the House side, and he is a huge government school guy, and so they're going to do whatever they can to water it down and make sure it doesn't have any teeth and that it has so many strings that people don't want to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's change streams here for just 1 second. Let's talk about Donald Trump. We know that this court case in New York, which is totally bogus, has gone against him. He's coming down for sentencing July 11th. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, he may be the first jailbird candidate we've ever had before. And I just saw somebody post a T-shirt idea on social media, something like, my candidate is a jailbird candidate, and I wholeheartedly support that. But I mean, do you think we're going to have an election in November? Do you think the Democrats are going to so derail the process that either A, we don't have a candidate, or B, we literally don't even have an election? Or what are your concerns about November with Donald Trump?
Boy, I do think they're trying to derail the election. It's a travesty. This is not America. We don't do this in America. Have weaponized the justice system, if you can even call it that, and so they're trying to take him out. And that much is clear. Will they be successful? These days, I'm somewhat pessimistic, because they're so conniving that it's hard to wrap our minds around how dark these people think, and so we want to think the best about people, and but when you're fighting your opponent, you can't assume the best about them. So I think we need to expect they're going to try to derail it. They want to lock him up and disqualify him from the race, so that Republicans don't even have a candidate in this race. And talk about election fraud. And so, I got to meet President Trump. I spoke with him on the phone. I got to meet him in person, and we had several minutes to visit. I got to say, he is the most in person, like he's attentive, he's compassionate, he's takes time for everyone. We were at the NRA convention in Dallas, and by the way, the NRA endorsed Phelan, and then Trump reaffirmed his endorsement of me at the NRA. I thought it was hilarious. But so he had a crowd of over 10,000 people waiting as he did. He took time to visit with a number of us in the back, one on one, and he wasn't rushing. And he values everyone. And for a guy that has the weight of the entire country and people all over the world wanting time with him, he was very present, pleasant, mindful of what my race was, and that election integrity was at stake, and the border. So we need a guy like this. When he called to endorse me, I had, even when I love Ken Paxton, but when I got his endorsement, it was just a tweet. I didn't even know it was coming. It was just a tweet. And when Trump endorses, he calls me on the phone from an unavailable number and tells me he's about to endorse me, and good luck. And we talked for a few minutes. So that's the kind of person he is. He's involved. He's hands-on. He loves this country, and we just really, really, really need to work hard to get him reelected, and win by such a large margin that they're cheating, that they're doing, still doesn't avail.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, what a guy Trump is, I tell you. Let's talk about real quickly here in our last few minutes what they're trying to do to the conservative movement. I mean, look at Dan Bongino, look at InfoWars, look at Charlie Kirk. I even heard they're trying to come after Epoch Times right now with some stuff. I mean, it's an obvious, blatant move to silence the conservative voice and crush the MAGA movement in America, especially before the November election. I mean, are you concerned that they're going to just shut our voice out completely? Or do you think that our movement is strong enough that we can just fight back and push back against this?
I think I'm concerned. I'm concerned that they have the willpower to come after these conservative outlets and voices, that they're going to try to crush us. They're not trying to just be the majority when they're the minority. They're trying to crush the majority, relegate us to insignificance, and then have us work and pay for all their pet projects. And so this is something that should outrage every, not just conservative but American, that we're trying to end free speech as we know it. And so it's a huge danger. It's something that we all have to be engaged in and fight back against. And so the movement is strong, and I think this primary season showed conservatives are winning races. We're definitely on the march. We just got to keep that momentum up, keep focused, and let's keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Thanks for your encouraging words as well. That's awesome. So what's next for David Covey? Are you running again in 2026? Are you going to run for this seat or something else? Or are you just going to go into early retirement and say, forget politics, I'm done?
No, so right now I'm trying to convince my wife to let me keep the mustache. That's my next big campaign item right now. If I get through that, who knows? Who knows? We're going to stay active. We're going to stay involved. But no big decisions for a little while. We're just going to spend time together and enjoy the boys, and keep supporting our local Republican groups.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, David, we love you so much here at Daniel Nation. We love your whole family. You guys are just a beautiful family. You're precious. And thank you so much for having the courage to step in that ring and take on Goliath. And I've said this to you before, and I'll say it again. I do not believe God's had the final word on this race. He's not had the final word over Texas or our legislature. And I know that God's hand is moving, and I put all my faith in the Lord, as I know you do too. But, it takes a lot of guts to stand up to a Goliath, and you did it. And so we're proud of you, David. The whole state of Texas is proud of you and what you accomplished. And so, man, we just want to say bless you, and we love you, and we'll continue to pray for you and your family.
That means a lot. Thank you so much. I love you and all the conservatives out there we met. We're in a wonderful nation, and I just have a lot of hope for where we're going.
Amen, brother. Well, thank you for coming on the Daniel Report, and I was honored to be your first interview since your election. So thanks for honoring us by coming on, and we wish you the very best. God bless you.
God bless.